Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I have a card featuring the new small stitched leaves dies, as well as the Thinking About You border die and some other fun dies and stamps from Lawn Fawn. To start, I am going to die cut these small stitched leaves from some watercolor cardstock, and I went ahead and left the leaves all attached. You could definitely cut them apart if you only want to use one or two, but I knew I was going to use all 5 of them, and so I went ahead and die cut them just as a group. You can see that great stitching detail there on each of the leaves. Next, I'm going to take some Tim Holtz Distress inks and ink up all of my leaves. For this first one, I'm using Spiced Marmalade and Barn Door, and just blending those together to get that nice two-tone look. For the next leaf, I am going to use Spiced Marmalade. I'm going to start with that one first, or I guess I'll start with the Fossilized Amber and then finish with the Spiced Marmalade. Again, giving that two-tone, but I kind of want it to gradually go from the reds and oranges to the greens and then brown. So that's why I'm kind of doing the two-tone, kind of pulling one of the colors from the previous leaf into the next one. This small one has the Fossilized Amber and Crushed Olive inks. This large maple leaf is going to have the Crushed Olive ink and Forest Moss. This is one of my favorite green color combinations. Go ahead and set that one aside. And finally, I'll have the Forest Moss and a little Gathered Twigs. So blend all of those out. I'm going to move everything aside, and I am going to grab my craft mat now because I'm going to use a little water to blend these colors even more, and the craft mat allows me to do that and not have a mess on my work surface. So I'll take some water in a mini mister, and I'm just going to very generously spritz these leaves so that that water moves. I'm going to go ahead and set those aside to air dry while I work on the rest of the card. I have some khaki cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. This is going to be a horizontal style card. And I have the Wood Grain Backdrops stamp from Lawn Fawn. I'm going to ink it up with Versamark ink, and I'm using a large handled stamp here. This is actually from Prima because this is such a large border stamp. And I'm going to use clear embossing powder on this, so it gives me a tone-on-tone look, but a nice glossy finish when it's done. I'm going to go ahead and ink it up again and stamp it along the bottom edge of the card. Now, I didn't worry about lining it up. There's going to be a little section in between each of these stamped borders, but it's going to be disguised with a border that I'm going to create here. I just need that wood grain look to be above and below the border. This is some ivory cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to use one of the great stitched border dies from Lawn Fawn along each edge of this strip. It's going to give a really nice decorative edge. I love this die collection. There's several different styles. I think there's 4 different styles, and it just adds a nice finishing touch to the edge of any type of strip or border or anything like that. So I did the same border along each side. I used a little post-it tape to hold it in place, so I made sure and got it nice and straight. And you can see that covers up where the seam meets between the wood grain background, and it gives the illusion that the entire card base has that wood grain background. Now I'm going to take some gold foil cardstock and die cut the Thinking About You Scripty border die. This is also from Lawn Fawn. And this is going to give me a great bold gold foil greeting for my card. I inked up my leaves first so that they could air dry while I worked on everything else, and they were done about right about the time that I was ready to put the whole card together. You can see the 2 little dots for the eyes stayed in the die, and that's okay. I'm not going to lose them that way, so I just left them in the die for the time being while I went to work on putting together the rest of the card. You can see my leaves are all nice and dry now. and the border will fit right there along the strip perfectly. I'm going to start attaching the leaves to the border, and I'm using some glue dots along the center of the leaf. And then underneath each of the sides, I'm going to put a foam dot to give them a little bit of lift and dimension. I'm going to trim off a little excess there on the border. It was a little longer than my card base. I'm going to do the same thing for each of the leaves. Place a glue dot or two along the center of the leaf, and then I will use some foam adhesive dots underneath each edge. Now for the small ones, I cut down the foam dots, like I cut them in half, and maybe didn't use them on each side. This is definitely a card you would probably want to consider sending in a padded envelope if you're going to mail it. If you're hand delivering it, it won't be any problem, but there is a little bit of dimension to it and you don't want it to get damaged if you do send it through the mail. So I would recommend using a padded envelope. Finish adding this last leaf with a little foam, a trimmed foam dot there underneath one side. And then I can go ahead and take my border, and I need to pop out any of those pieces that didn't come out when it die cut. I'm just using a piercing tool to pop those out. And I'll take the zig glue pen and add little dots of glue all over the back of this, and then adhere it right on top of the border there. Just kind of carefully lay that out. Stick it down. I'm going to put something heavy on top of it until it's all the way dry. Add a couple of little dots of glue where the dots on the eye goes. And then I'm going to take my die and carefully just poke those out. And this one flipped over. It kind of gave me a little bit of trouble, but they're so teeny tiny. I'm using the tip of this straight pin to maneuver them and get them in place. I will finish the card with a scattering of enamel dots. They kind of have a wood grain background, so they go nicely with this fall themed Thinking About You card. Once the enamel dots are in place, I can flip the card over and trim off those excess ends from the die cut greeting. Thanks for watching this video showcasing Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. For more information on this project, please check out the Lawn Fawn blog. Thanks for watching.